sure, take this to a nice like close-up gig, and you could use it as your like everyday deck. But I think the real strength of it is for people that like want to do Mark Deck stuff that you just have a hard time reading them.
Yeah.
Because it's if you can't read that, I'm sorry, there's no Mark Deck for you.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
like,
I think that's fair.
Without just like writing it in huge letters on and numbers like that.
Hey everybody, Eric Tate here alongside my good buddy Nick LaCoppa, and welcome back to another Penguin Magic Top 10 list as determined by you, the Penguin Magic fans. And today we're talking about the top 10 Mark Decks. This is a big video.
What's a Mark Deck?
A Mark Deck?
I've never heard of such a thing.
It's a deck of cards with markings on it.
So I can know what the value of the card is by looking at the back of it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's face down.
Well, I've never seen one before. I love Mark Decks.
Nick and I both, I think a Mark Deck is our everyday carry. I think when it comes down to, like, if I'm going out and I'm doing tricks with a deck of cards.
I mean, I will get to it.
Yeah.
It was never my everyday carry.
No.
I mean, in fact, like if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have been like, absolutely not. But, recent developments in the Mark Deck world have made it a lot more accessible, and we're going to talk about all sorts of different Mark Decks.
It's really exciting. So there's this list is going to be a lot of fun. We have from all kinds of different card designers, all kinds of different magicians.
Yeah.
If you've never seen one of those videos before, first of all, welcome. Second of all, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button as well as ring the bell so you'll be notified every time a video like this goes up. The way these top 10s come out is we put out a poll. We put out I think you can even submit decks to it. And the Penguin Magic fans on our Facebook and our Instagram pages are the ones who actually do the voting. So this is not a list determined by me and Nick. This is a list determined by you, the viewer. If you follow us on Facebook and Instagram, there's links for those in the description down below. You can participate in all of these polls. We constantly have new polls going up so that Nick and I can come in and take a look at these. We bring the decks in, we get a hands-on on the tricks, and then we talk about them. Because we actually learn these things.
Yeah, it's crazy to think. It's crazy to think we learned them all. But yeah, we know. Yeah. I know as much as I can know about all these decks of cards.
So just talking about broadly, Mark Decks have been around forever. I mean, I think the first Mark Deck was created right after gambling was invented.
Yeah.
And
somebody realized they could win money with a deck like that. Yeah, that's when they came out.
So we're not really going to be talking about like marking systems like you would see like gamblers use, because there's like blockout, work, there's scratch work, there's all kinds of different things. There's even like, you can sort decks of cards like with an all-over back design so that just spreading the deck can tell you high-low. We're not talking about that.
There's a lot.
We're talking about decks that were marked specifically for magicians.
Yeah, these are printed at the factory, with a clever design on how to hide the secret of the marks.
Yeah.
And they kind of run the spectrum of all the different design styles that exist within this world. And I guess we'll discover all these things along the way as we go.
Yep.
But I would think that the top 10 Mark Decks, these are decks that magicians would use for tricks.
Yes, I think so. So let's kick it off with number 10. This is from Penguin Magic. This is the Gliders, or the Gliderback deck. These are from Penguin Magic cards. We started printing more interesting designs and interesting stuff.
Yeah, if you're not aware, every month at Penguin Magic, we release a brand new deck of cards, custom deck. We work with a series of designers, so we kind of rotate through them, custom tuck boxes, custom back designs, and the cards are all printed. Well, nowadays they're printed on some of our newer stock. This one is not. This is printed at the United States Playing Card Company. Yep. We'll talk about the stocks and everything when we get to some of the other ones. But and it is a Mark deck. Now, not every deck we put out is marked.
No.
It's just this design just happens to be a Mark deck of cards. And it's a very clever Mark deck. This is something that we would call, the term reader means that like it actually says the card on the back of the card's back here, but this is not that.
No, this is more of a coded system. So we're not going to overtly expose all of the marks here because this is YouTube, but with these, I would say that there is an area of the deck that is a little more bold, and given, depending on like how many of the areas are bold, that sort of clues you into, the value of the card and the suit of the card. And so there's a little bit of work that you have to do to actually get there.
Yeah, and this one, we'll be talking about the riffle test here probably a lot today.
Going to the movies, as they call it in the gambling house.
Yeah, this is one of those tests where you can riffle through a deck and kind of see what moves and see where the markings are. This one stands up to the riffle test.
Yeah, it really
hard.
does.
I mean, you can see it if you know where you're supposed to look, but it actually does stand up to this test.
Yeah.
This is a very cleverly hidden marking system. Like Eric said, really the mark exists in the corner, and some of the smaller lines are going to be bolder or thinner, cluing you into what you have to know in your head. It doesn't literally say the card in the back, but it will tell you it based on the code.
So just first of all, I think the back design is very attractive.
Very cool.
It's not like, with some of the designer decks, it can occasionally, especially with a marked designer deck, sometimes it can look a little like out of place.
No,
right?
this looks like
this looks like a deck you would find somewhere else, like
somewhere in like the Tally-Ho world a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a version 2 of this coming out.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, at some point.
Oh, that's
I
exciting.
think in 2022 we'll be excited to see that. But
the faces are pretty interesting too.
yeah, this would fly by.
I could see someone using this like every day.
Yeah.
I can see someone like wanting to have this deck to perform with, to look a little more, stand out a little bit.
Now we are kind of making this video up as we go. And I'm even realizing things that we're going to need to talk about probably, Eric, with each one. So we're spending a little extra time here on this deck. But, another thing is, can you read it from far away?
I think that was one thing that I was going to bring up is I have you don't need glasses. I do. I have a hard time reading this one from far away.
This deck is not one that you're going to be reading from this distance. No. Yeah. No, this is one that you're going to probably want to have like in your hand or on the immediately on the table, and it is not going to be like a glance down, know where the mark is. You're going to have to discover where the marking is on this. So you're going to have to do that little bit of thing because you got to see the spots. It's not hard, but you do need to be able to see it and then do the thing in your head to know.
We're going to talk about this a little bit later too, because I know that there's some decks that didn't make the list that I want to talk about, but. With marking systems like this, where you've got to do a little extra work, it is possible to get to the point where you look at the card and then you kind of know what it is, just sort of intuitively. Sure. You have to spend a lot of time working with that deck to do that.
Yeah,
and there's a couple of decks that jump to mind that do that and have a very intuitive system.
It's also not going to work from a spread
or
anything like that. You're going to have to get a full glimpse of the top corner of this card. Doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
It's just,
It's designed for something different than what you may want to do. And I think that when you're getting into marked decks, you have to consider exactly how you're going to use the marks.
Yeah.
So, but the glider deck is very cool. Also, the faces are very attractive too.
Yeah.
And did you make a video for this? Okay.
This is before I was doing my Inside the Box series, which
crack in a pack.
Crack a pack.
Yeah.
Crack a pack. So.
Yeah, but I think I particularly like the face cards on these, which are pretty cool. And as with all of our decks, it comes with like a blank face, double backer, that kind of stuff. So
they're very, very cool deck. Actually, I do think those are sold out right now, and which is why the version 2 will be coming out, I think, in 2022.
Still very cool. Let's move on though.
Yeah.
To
the next
9.
one. Yeah. Next one. This is another Penguin Magic custom deck. These came out in 2021. These are the Wranglers. Wranglers marked cards. These were designed. Who were these designed by? I think was it Drew? No, Oviedo Stoica. That's right. This deck was designed by Oviedo, and then the markings were by Phil Smith, which is Phil's name is going to come up a few times in this video. Actually, I'm not sure who did the markings on the glider back. I don't know if it's probably not written on the bottom there, but. Does it say who designed it?
It's designed by Gabriel Costache. It doesn't say about the marking system, so not quite sure.
The Wrangler deck is just kind of a throwback deck to Old West cowboy cards. Really fun, and this thing actually has a lot of marks on it. Now it is a reader deck. It actually just straight up says the name of the card right on the border. So, like for example, this one here.
That's the 6 of clubs, right?
Yeah, 6 of clubs. Right there, like that. It's literally in the the top left or the top on both ends. Actually, it's in all 4 edges there. It also has like a lot of subtle one-way marks. And when I say one-way, now I'm sure we're going to get to that on some of these as well.
Yeah, which is one-way marks are very, very powerful if you know what you're dealing with. I mean, it's super, super cool.
Yeah. So this deck, like weirdly, doesn't stand up to. Well, here's the funny thing about this deck. Like, there's like. The way that this was designed was that it was supposed to look like an Old West deck of cards. Now, all Old West deck of cards had markings on them, whether or not they were like intentional or not.
Yeah.
It's just because that was the same deck that existed in the bar for 20 years, right? So if you grew to know the deck, you could know. So there's actually weird intentional like marks on the back that are just like scrapes and things. So when you flip through it here, you'll see like a lot of inconsistencies in the deck, but that's just the design.
It's also interesting because like the one-way markings almost don't stand up to the riffle test,
Right.
but the reader system
does. The reader
it's
does.
crazy. It's one of the only reader systems I've seen that does stand
Yeah,
up to the riffle test.
it's really hard to see.
Yeah.
It's almost like and weirdly, even though this back design is like very like it's got like sheriff stars and little like ornamental things, but the readers, when you see it, is very digital. It's very like old like 80s clock style.
Yeah.
Like when digital stuff first came out. That's like what it kind of looks like.
Almost like a scoreboard.
Yeah. So they're a fun deck. Oh, also, let's just mention the the design is cool, but the face cards are all cowboys, like real ones. So I've tried to figure out, like, we got a little. Don't tell me that's not Val Kilmer tombstone right there, right? And we also have that's the Duke right there. We got a little John Wayne there. So it's a really fun deck of cards. Is marked. What do you think?
Okay, I could see myself using these only because I got a couple of routines that revolve around like gambling or stuff like that, or like some old like I could see pulling these out to do like a specific trick, especially like if I was coming up with, or even like a story deck.
Sure.
As an everyday carry, not so much.
No.
Also, the marks, they are readers. They are hard to read across a table.
Yeah, you're not doing it.
For me.
Yeah.
They're in the hand. I can see what it is pretty well. The only thing I don't like about these, they're not good face up. And what I mean by that is if you reverse a card, the color of the back and the color of the face is a slightly different color. So if you were to do this, it's almost like having an all-over back design. Now, it's very subtle. It's very subtle, the difference. So, I mean, like, you could sort of, like, get away with it a little bit.
It's hard to spot from the edge.
It's hard to spot. But for a lot of the stuff that I do, because I deal with a lot of, like, reverse cards in the deck periodically, that is something that I notice. Very fun deck of cards. It's just, again, what am I going to use them for?
Yeah, you can do a selection peek from a spread.
Yeah.
The marks are very like they're. You can do a tight spread here and still see like I can see it there. Yeah. So
this to me is the kind of deck that I would take and I would leave in my local bar because they would just keep it around forever and it would just look like a bar that has lived in the deck for a deck of cards that has lived in the bar for a while. And then you could just be like, yeah, I do card tricks, and then blow people away because they have no idea. It's not because it's not your deck. I mean, like, this is one of those like incognito decks.
Yeah.
That are almost.
I believe it's also traditionally cut. I'm aware of that, but and then also double backer, blank facer.
Yeah.
The Wranglers. These are available at Penguin Magic.
Let's move on to number 8. This is more of a system, but this is the Marksman Deck by Luke Germain. Now, this is published by Vanishing Ink. When you buy these, the first deck is a little pricier. It's like $40, $50 or something like that. But you can get, I know you can get refills on these for a little less expensive. I think they're in like $10, $15 range. That may have changed. I don't know. It's been a while since I've done these. This is a mark deck that's a system. We're not going to go deep in on how the marks work on this, but there is a lot going on.
This brings up a new category of mark deck, and that is this is a mark deck that works within a stack.
Yeah.
So other decks right now they're just marked cards.
Yeah.
This deck works in mnemonica. Yes, you can still shuffle this deck and know what the value of the card is and all that stuff, but if you were to retain this deck's order in a stack, you're actually able to get other information. And I'll just read off the type of information you can get. Like, for example, there's a mark on these cards that will tell you how many cards are above the card. So if you were to cut a pile of cards off the top of the deck, there's a marking on here that would tell me how many cards I'm holding, right? There's also a mark that tells you the value of the card.
Yeah.
It'll tell you the...
I think it's also position.
it'll tell you the value of the card above it. So not if you were to cut here, like if the spectator was to cut this deck, I could know what card this is, right?
By looking at the pack.
By looking at this card, it would tell me what that card is. There's a marking on here that will tell you, whatever this card is, it will tell you the distance between this card and its mate.
Yeah. It's
crazy, right?
Basically, so Luc Germain is a giant in mentalism. I mean, he's created some really wild stuff. And Luc essentially set out to create a marking system that would tell him lots of information so he could do really full routines. I mean, you can do an entire act with this deck if you keep it in order and follow Luc's instructions, which are phenomenal.
Right. So
also, the other thing to just sort of comment on with this is, and this is the first one that we've dealt with, this is designed to look like a standard deck. These are the mandolins.
Yep, mandolin back.
Mandolin back is designed to look like, sort of traditional rider back. It's a look-alike. I mean, it's its own category of back design.
Yeah,
but it's what lay people are more accustomed to, a quote-unquote regular deck.
There's also a one-way marking on here. I mean, these things are marked to the hills.
Yeah.
And if you were to look at a back of this, and we're not going to show you like the actual back, there's stuff all over the back design of this.
Yeah.
Now it's well hidden, but this isn't something that you're going to be like. I mean, I wouldn't be nervous to let somebody handle this card.
No, not
but
at all.
that's just because I know they just don't look at this stuff. But I would say that this is more like a parlor deck. Like to do this, can you go out to the bar and use this? No, yes, but like
these marks also hide well because of the routine that Luc
Yes.
teaches you. And so when you're doing this routine, people are dealing cards themselves. They're counting cards in their hands. There's never really a moment where they're going to be like, oh, and like really examine it. They're not holding onto the cards very often. They're often preoccupied with stuff. And the stuff that you're getting from these marks is not what lay people traditionally think you would get from a marked deck. Because lay people know about marked cards, but when they're like, oh, it's marked, they think about using the marks for like the identity of the card, not the distance between this and the mate, how many cards are above it, how many cards are below it.
Well, what is really going on here, and this is, I just kind of failed to say it at the beginning, is that there's another deck of cards in this list that we're going to be talking about that's similar to this. This is a deck that allows you to do memorized deck work without having to do or know a memorized stack. This gives you lots of information. It's very, very, very cool. And it just comes. I feel like I get this question a lot from people on online, magicians that want to know like, what's the best deck to do like memorized deck work? And I always tell them, well, let's just work on actually memorizing a deck.
Yeah.
But this does give you access to some things that even if you memorize the deck, to know like the distance between the mate and stuff, like yes, you can do it with a memorized deck, but not as quick with something like this.
The only other thing to sort of point out is printed by the USPCC.
Sure.
It's a very high quality deck of cards, and overall, I mean, it's a great product.
And this one is actively printed, so you can like get it, which is also important to know. Like, glider back out of stock at the moment, but like this is still actively made. So.
Yeah, the Marksman Deck by Luc Germain is really, really a fantastic deck of cards. And
because if you are going to go down the road and learn these tricks, you want to be able to buy those decks forever, right?
Yeah.
And as my knowledge, you can still get that deck. So yeah.
So very cool. Let's move on to number 7.
Number 7 is the Cohort deck. I wasn't familiar with this one until very recently. This is by Illusionist?
Yes, that is an Illusionist deck.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so this is, I'm going to just assume, because it looks like, so I'm giving like an honest like unboxing here. It looks like something from like CVS or like a local drugstore deck.
I feel like this is designed to look like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, this is not, saying that is not an insult to the deck.
No, not at all. Yeah. I love those decks. I prefer those decks, to be honest. And even the back design looks like just something like a dollar store.
You know what it's almost sort of reminds me of is the, it was a really old deck of cards, the Aristocrat deck.
Yeah.
It feels very much like the Aristocrat deck.
Yeah.
Even the faces.
The faces are like, these are traditional, like stud cards, like, it's right in that alley. I actually love this.
Yeah. They're poker sized though.
Yeah. The borders are a little thin. They don't bother me, but I'd be like, the little thin borders. And the marks are very easy to read.
Yeah.
They're readers. and they just exist in the top kind of leftish area. It's not going to stand up well to the going to the movies test here. It's very, very clear where those are.
Yeah,
but
which is
fine.
with reader systems, it's always a balancing act between how boldly they're marked and like how boldly they're marked and how subtle it is inside the back design, because you want to be able to see it and know what it is immediately, but also you want it to blend in.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be concerned about this at all.
Yeah, like, and this one is one that I can see from a little bit more distance on the table. I can tell that we have the ace of clubs there.
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
I can
like,
actually see that too, even with my glasses.
Yeah, because it's like once you know where that is, and this is one where like the suits, like if you're familiar with this deck, there's only 4 values for the suit, right?
Yeah.
So like once you know what that looks like and that's burned in your head, you just glance at that area and you got the suit. You don't have to worry about that.
Because you're not using the symbol for the suit on this one like some of the others that we're going to talk about.
Right. So yeah, from a spread, let's put this right back into the order there.
The other thing I will say about these, I think these also come in red, but the ones we're playing with were blue.
Yep.
For parlor and stage situations, I like a blue reader back deck because the blue is a higher contrast than red, so it's easier to see from further away.
Yeah. Now, unless I'm missing something, which I don't think that I am, but I literally just getting my hands on these for the first time. It's from a spread selection. You're going to have to get over a little bit more to see the actual value. You can get the suit. The suit's really easy from the spread, but the position of where the value is a little bit more towards the center. I mean, it's more inside there. So you can still get it, but you'd have to, from a tight spread, it's not like the Wranglers or something where you can catch it right on the edge. I like this deck a lot.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's very pretty.
It's probably a one-way mark, you think?
I imagine there is.
I'm
not seeing one.
Looks pretty tight.
Flip her around.
Oh, well, actually, we haven't. I should probably do this, right? Because they have come in new deck order.
Yeah. We'll say they faro very nicely. The stock is really great. I do not believe that these are printed by the USPCC, only because I'm looking at the bottom of the box and it says manufactured in Belgium, which to me indicates Carta Mundi, which is a very, very high quality manufacturer. But I couldn't be certain on that. So don't take me at my word there. Have you seen any one-way marks?
No. And you know what's funny with like modern decks now too? Like we talk about stock, like. I talk about it all the time now.
Yeah.
Man, all the decks are good.
They're so good.
All the decks are good.
I'm even starting to prefer some of the decks that are not USPCC stock.
Yeah.
I mean, in certain instances, I know don't get at me in the comments below, but that's kind of where I'm getting to these days.
I don't think there's a one-way mark on here.
I think you're right.
I'm going pretty hard on this, and unless I'm missing it completely, but I do like this deck quite a bit. Cohorts, good deck.
Let's move on to another sort of system.
Oh,
this is.
By the way, is that a red-blue?
That is a red-blue double backer.
Red-blue double backer in there.
That's a pretty cool gimmick.
Yeah. Red-blue double backer in there. And is that maybe an extra? Oh no, I did shuffle.
You
I
shuffled.
Okay.
Oh.
What did I miss?
Actually, that's a Queen of Spades.
Oh, so you get a duplicate Queen of Spades.
Duplicate Queen of Spades. Now I like that.
You know what? I need to address this because this comes out all the time.
Yep.
And this might not be the right video for it, but at least you'll know if you're watching this. People and I used to ask this question: why don't we get more duplicate cards? Like I get a custom deck. Why can't I get a duplicate Ace of Hearts or something in there? Right? I use duplicates all the time.
I do too.
Because people think this is true, and we know this because we're on the customer service end of it. We'll send out a deck with an extra Ace of Hearts in there. People think it's misprinted, and they send it back.
Yeah.
They're like, "Hey, my deck came with an extra Ace of Hearts. This isn't correct. I need a new deck." And that's like,
Do you remember the first set of marked cards that came out from Penguin? That they came out with.
Oh yeah,
and we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
came out with an extra set of aces, and people all the time thought that they were missing cards.
I don't know what we need to do to remedy that because I want duplicate cards in my custom decks.
I want my custom deck to be opened up, and I want 2 gaps in it. I want an extra card, and I want a double backer.
Yeah. The blank facer is fun sometimes, but Anyway,
so let's move on.
Sorry.
Let's move on to number 6. This is another system I think we're talking about here. This is the Code by Andy Nyman. This is very cool. So this is very similar to the Marksman deck. In that, when you open it up, you want to keep it in stack. Now, there's some advertising cards and some jokers on here, but this is another system where if you were to look at this, this deck of cards tells you a lot of stuff. So this right here there's a mark on this that tells me this card right here. There's a mark that tells me the identity of this card, and there's a mark that tells me the position in the deck. There's 3 marks on the back on this one, so not as much information as the Marksman, but I would say it's a lot better hidden.
It works with mnemonica, just like the Marksman, and it's more simplified.
Yeah.
It does everything. Well, the Marksman does everything that this does and gives you more.
Yeah.
But this is really, this is almost like I've recommended this to people that are trying to learn a stack deck because you can almost use this as like your flashcards.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to make a flashcard deck like to help you learn mnemonica or something like that, this is great for that. But also, if you don't know mnemonica, it works fantastic. So, for example, the Queen, I just need to know where the marks are. Okay, so if I was to cut here, this card would tell me that this card you're looking at is the Jack of Hearts, right? Because it's just written on the back. And also
that
it'll
tells
tell me
the,
this card.
the 3 of spades.
So it's like, but these are all things that you can do with a marked deck anyway, because if I already know that this is in stack in mnemonica, so all I have to do is look at, well, I already cut to the Queen of Hearts there. If I was to peek this one, the 6 of Hearts, I know that's the 23rd card in the deck. That probably is listed right there, right? And also the next card is the 10 of Clubs, or 10 of, oh man, I always get, it's 10 of Spades.
You were correct the first time, 10 of clubs.
I just stacked it in. I might have stacked it wrong yesterday, actually. Funny. But anyway, that's what it does.
Let's talk about a couple of other really interesting things here. So, Andy Nyman's a genius. I mean, there's an episode of the Penguin Magic podcast where you can hear me talk to Andy Nyman about some of his tricks and his work with Darren Brown. There's a bunch of tricks that Andy teaches you in this project.
Oh, I bet the tricks are great.
Yeah, the tricks are amazing.
I haven't even thought about that.
It's really, really good. And he includes some ideas from some of his friends. Also, this is the first one that we've looked at yet. This is a different one. This is on the Maiden back.
Sorry, I'm getting the instructional video because I'm going to watch these tricks.
Absolutely. This is on the Maiden back deck, which is, again, looks like the Rider back, is not the Rider back, but does look a lot like the Rider back.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting stuff going on with this. Printed by the United States Playing Card Company.
Now, I'm guessing this is back. Like,
this is a little bit of an older
This was
trick.
out of stock. So again, this is one of those problems when it comes to if you're going to put the work in to learn tricks with this deck, you want to know that this deck is going to exist for a long time, or just learn a stacked deck. Just learn mnemonica, and you can literally do everything that this deck can tell you already.
I think the only difference is with some of these more open marking systems is that because of the way the code is marked, there are some tricks that Andy teaches you that when you go to get that peak, it's a lot faster to get the peak, so you can be slightly more fair. You would just have to do a different peak.
Well, no, I mean, or just use any marked deck with your stack.
Yes.
Right? Because if I know the information, any marked deck is going to tell me the same information that this does.
Yeah.
But you don't have to know the stack to know the stuff. But my point is that I'm guessing because it's printed in Maiden now, that maybe, because I know I know these ran out at one point.
Yeah.
And you couldn't get the code. But I'm guessing because I don't think it was originally printed in Maiden. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that maybe they have this back in stock and it's something that you can get often enough. Because I don't think it's, I think it's on Penguin, it comes in and out of stock, so you might have to go directly to Theory to get it. But I don't know.
But great, really great product.
Oh,
you can't say enough good things about stuff that comes out from Andy Nyman. He doesn't release stuff often, but when he does, chef's kiss.
But just keep that in mind. That, if you're gonna learn these things from these coded stack deck marks,
when it's a full system,
if you're gonna commit to something like that, you just want to make sure that it's something that you're gonna be able to get, or buy a ton of them at the top. If it's something you're gonna use forever, buy as many as you need to last you the rest of your life. I know that sounds crazy, but that's magic tricks, right?
Yeah.
So
let's move on to number 5. And Nick,
is this me?
This is you. This is one of the OGs.
I love this one.
This is so good.
Boris Wild Mark Deck.
I had this forever.
Now the thing about this one,
this is the one that set the world on fire.
Yeah, and this is like one of the. Oh, this is still sealed here.
Yeah.
It's one of the first ones that was, we were talking earlier, it was first a rub-on.
Yes.
And then it became printed.
This is printed in Maiden back.
Yeah, this is a new print style here.
Yeah. The Boris Wild decks were originally printed on Rider back, which was for those of you who don't know, was a huge deal at
Can't
the
do
time.
that now.
Cannot do that
Can't
now.
do that now.
And the original Boris Wild system was just like it was like a temporary tattoo for cards. It was like decals that you put on the cards. It was one of the first reader systems that was out there. I'm not sure if it was the first reader system, but it was the first one that I was aware of.
Yeah, I had
at least the first one that was like super mass marketed.
and this is when Mark decks were much more expensive.
Yeah.
I don't know what this costs at the moment, but I like. It's fun nowadays, and we'll get to some of the other Mark decks here, where it's like, my Mark deck to me is disposable.
Yes.
I don't care. I'll get cards signed, ripped, whatever. This deck, when I first got this went in my Pauper clip.
Yep.
I only touched it on special occasions.
You didn't take it to a bar or a restaurant.
No.
You only performed with it in high class situations where you knew the cards were going to be taken very well care of.
So this is on Maiden back. We said that, but this has something different about it that no other Mark deck has, and that is one of the main features of this deck is being able to have somebody name a card, and then you find that card from the spread.
Yeah.
Where you're just able to look down and hopefully in like a pretty short time frame find that card, which is not all possible with decks that have their markings on the edge, but if from a shuffled deck that can be a little daunting. So what the Boris Wild Mark deck does is it's broken up where the markings are in certain sections of the card. So, for example, the suits. And in this, it's clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds.
Oh,
right?
That's right. I was going back and trying to remember exactly what the deal was here.
Yes.
And
so it's if they were to say like the 10 of clubs, my brain knows that okay, the clubs are in like the top left area.
Yeah.
So I'm only scanning the top left area and only seeing 110, right?
Yeah.
Because all of the other 10s are going to be in a different area on the deck. So it makes it easier to find the card from a spread.
There's some other systems that do that as well, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to sort of the honorable mentions section, because I think that there's a number of marking systems that I'm shocked didn't show up in here, but use a similar principle where you're both using a reader, as in the number that you can see for the value, and then a location to determine suit.
Yeah. Now these hold up well. Like you would never be concerned to hand this to somebody.
No.
Really, the only thing that is visible on this card is one number, because position tells you suit, right? Like where the number is on the card will tell you what the suit is.
Yeah.
So, you wouldn't have to worry about somebody handling this. From the table here, you do have to do a little bit of work to find where the number is going to be.
Yeah.
Right? Because
So
you're not going to know.
I know that this is a king.
Right.
And I believe
It'd
this
be a
is
diamond.
a diamond. Yeah. Yeah, king of diamonds.
Yeah. So this is a great Mark deck.
It's awesome.
It's a great Mark deck.
And I'll tell you the other thing that we should talk about a little bit with this, because Boris Wild has some amazing instructions on Mark decks, but also the Boris Wild Mark deck book.
Oh, it's amazing.
It was one of the books that changed my life as far as working with Mark cards.
So many good tricks.
Because there's a lot of tricks that where knowing the identity of the card is great, but it's how you get that identity. But there's also other things you can use marks for other than just pick a card and then I know the identity of that card.
Otherwise, it's designed to look like an everyday deck of cards.
Yeah.
This is one that you would carry and use all the time. I wonder if the price is different on this these days.
I bet you it is.
It's got to be, because back in the day, I think this was like $30, $40 maybe. It comes with some written instructions, but probably has a link to a video, I'm going to assume. And, it's printed by Royal Magic these days.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Very, very, very great deck of cards. I mean, when those came out, it was a huge deal.
Yeah.
Speaking of big deals, let's move on to number 4 on this list, which are the Garrett Thomas, or the GT Speed Readers by Garrett Thomas. Another fantastic deck. This is printed on mandolin, and I think Garrett designed the mandolin back design.
That wouldn't... I believe that's true.
Yeah, I feel like I heard a conversation with this once. I could be wrong, but I feel like I heard that conversation.
Yeah.
But these are great. The markings on this are in a different location than a lot of the others, and this is, man, Garrett's thinking on mark cards is really, really solid. There's a lot of very, very specific reasons why these cards are marked in the way they are, and it has a lot to do with the way Garrett does his work. It's really fantastic. It's another reader system. You can see it immediately where it is. It's marked for both suit and value, and the suits are marked on these with the actual suit themselves. So I can look at this and know it's the King of Clubs. Really, really nice deck. Again, printed by USPCC. I think when you get these, you get a download of Garrett teaching you some interesting tricks.
I mean, I was looking at this little card here. It's got like it kind of tells you where the mark is a little bit, but it's also disguised to look like an official poker hand rankings thing.
Yeah.
There's like a coupon here, whether that's real or not. I'm assuming it might be, but yeah.
Really, really interesting deck of cards. And you're going to be looking for, so a lot of times, a lot of marked decks, the marks are all kind of in the same location. Garrett's are not, and it's almost more deceptive, especially because if you hand this deck of cards to a magician who's used to using marked cards, they're going to look in all the wrong places.
That's actually pretty funny, you know, like.
If I wanted to fool magicians with a marked deck trick, I would use the GT speed readers.
And you know, I am guilty of looking in the wrong. Like even with regular marked cards, I'll actually read the marking upside down. A lot of times, just because my brain wants to read it there for some reason. But Garrett has kind of fixed that. Otherwise, it's just it's, again, just like the other ones, designed to look like an everyday bicycle deck of cards. I think all the suits and
these are what Garrett uses.
I
mean, this is. I mean, and if you know anything about Garrett Thomas, he will wreck your brain. He'll take your brains out and stomp on them because he's an amazing magician. And these are a really fantastic set of marked cards. Can't say enough good things about them. But very similar into the Boris Wild when these came out, set the world on fire because the marks were very open and it was printed directly on the cards, which was just a huge, huge difference.
Yep, that's a great. It's great. It's really
Let's talk a little bit. So this is the point in the show where we always talk about things that didn't make the list, and I think that there's some really good ones that shouldn't. The first, I think we should talk about these.
Well, maybe one of the first. I think this might be the first marketed.
First marketed marked decks was the Deland deck.
Probably.
If you're not familiar with the Deland deck, at least, man, in a lot of early Magic kits and a lot of early Magic shops, you would have this. I can't remember what they would call them. It's almost like a mechanical deck or something.
Yeah,
like that.
the automatic.
Deland's automatic deck. And when you talk about a deck of cards with a system in it, the Deland deck. It was designed to be used in stack, and I think the stack was Cy Stebbins.
Yeah, it's used in Cy Stebbins, and it kind of is. I'm looking. Usually, there's a card that it comes with that kind of tells you where the markings are.
Yeah,
but
this one.
Yeah. So it'll tell you the value of the card. It will also tell you the next card in line. It will tell you how many cards are above the card. So if I cut here, it would tell you how many cards I'm holding. And then the number of cards left in the deck, which is just a little bit of math there, and then also tell you the previous card. And it's all based on these. There's two back designs here that do the same thing.
Yeah. So it's the Daisy deck, and then
this is
the other
Daisy,
one
and this is the Nifty.
The Nifty, yeah.
Yeah. These are not. No borders, so like a borderless design.
These are based on his original designs, I believe.
Yeah. So these were reprinted by us here at Penguin in 2021, and they're based on the original design. They're actually like, even if you look at the faces and stuff, it has like little like
imperfections. Like if you, I don't know if we can see this closely on the camera, but like the red on the Jack's crown, sort of like bleeds above.
They look like they've been stamped.
Yeah.
They're very, very cool. This would be like a great gift to give somebody. And the markings are very well, like they're not readers, right? It's going to be like some sort of coded system that you need to learn. It's not going to hold up to the to the movies test.
Man,
it's one of the worst for that. But,
especially these days. I mean, it's like watching a flip book happen. It's crazy.
Yeah, but a super fun deck of cards. These, and we've reprinted them, so the stock is great on them. And there's actually a new Deland deck coming out in 2022.
Really?
Yeah, I don't want to say anything about it just yet. But if you're watching this and it's 2023, take a look for another Deland. Just search Deland on Penguin Magic, and you'll find a couple decks.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Richard Kaufman wrote a book on Deland, and there is a lot of work with these decks in that book.
Yeah, I don't know how much like tricks with the Deland deck there are in there, but yes, that book's amazing.
Yeah.
I can't remember
But it was one of the first
Mystery and Madness or something like that. It's called.
It was one of the first marketed decks. I mean, like this earns a place in history because while we may not use it right now. A lot of times, the first marked deck of cards you got was this. You had to learn the code, you had to memorize it, you had to figure out how to do all the stuff in your head. And it was the first time that really magicians had access to a deck of cards that they could just buy, take out of the pack, and immediately use the markings on. Because prior to that, it was all you had to do the marks yourself. You either had to block out, areas of white or scratch off some stuff or, add juice, so you could throw your eyes out of focus.
Well, I mean, the other one that we have on hand here, we have some that we have one on the list, but we don't actually have them. Screams at Midnight was a really fun Mark deck that came out in 2020.
Go watch the demo. It's probably one of the most fun we've ever had putting together a demo for a deck of cards.
And this is just the markings here were designed by Phil Smith, and they're so clever.
Yeah.
They're very hard to describe. There's a video on Penguin that tells you exactly what these are, the markings. I mean, look, this isn't a deck that you're going to be using as your everyday carry or anything like that. It's got these.
The Halloween, throw these out on the coffee table.
They also work with the 3D glasses, so they got a little like effect to them. But it literally says, like, this card literally says 9 of diamonds, like the full sentence up in the top left. But the way that it's hidden is so clever.
Yeah.
Go to Penguin and watch the video on how this is done. I wanted to at least. Phil Smith comes up with some really cool stuff, and this is one of my favorite things.
I love the Screams at Midnight deck. It's so much fun. But there's a couple of other decks that we don't have here, but I'm sure I'm going to throw some B-roll up of some video clips of these decks of cards. But let's just talk about edge marking. None of these decks that we've really seen yet involve edge marking, it's interesting because you can read where a deck is from like a beveled position.
Yeah. And there's so from the side here, there would be a marking that would tell you what the card is. This originates from, it originates from way back.
It's originally a gambling thing, and you would use it to you would just mark the values or only cards that were of high value that you wanted, and so you could see where they were coming up.
Yeah, like if you just struck the aces on the side.
Yeah, with just like a
you'd
little
be able
bit
to
of
spot
sandpaper.
it from the side, right?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
So there's coded systems that will allow you to almost like the Boris Wild deck. So just imagine that maybe coded for suit or something where you just marked the this side would be clubs, diamonds, hearts, spades. You would know where all those different values are.
Don't think that means that the card has to be read inside the pack. It just allows you to do. It's just
it allows you to cut. Exactly to a certain card.
There's two that jump out in my mind.
Yeah.
One is the GPS deck, which I keep thinking of as the Regatta deck, but it's called the Regatta playing cards.
The box says Regatta on it, but
it's a really clever marking system. And
the other one would be the Butterfly deck.
The Butterfly deck, which, by the way, shout out to Andre. I got to hang out with him at FISM. He's an amazing magician and a brilliant thinker, and his decks are beautiful. And his system is really intuitive. He gave me a deck, and I'm sorry I don't have it here on camera.
I actually have one. I didn't even think to bring it today. Yeah.
He gave me one, and he taught me to read the marks. And within 15 minutes, I was reading the marks. And they're pretty intuitive.
Yeah, same with the GPS deck is the same way. It takes no time at all to understand where the cards are.
It is a code, but it's not like the Deland deck, you got to do some work, right? The Glider deck, you got to do some work and really get used to it. Both the GPS and the Butterfly have codes that have been designed to be intuitive and be able to get you on board.
Yeah, I'm surprised there's not an edge mark. There wasn't an edge marked on the list, because it is just different. I was actually doing a named card multiple selection. So the audience would name a card, and I would just I had justification for just looking at the edge of the deck and just giving it a cut, and you just cut the card to the top, and it's the same thing. Look, all these things all come down to kind of doing memorized deck work. Mark cards allow you to do memorized deck work without knowing a memorized deck. Edge marking allows you to do estimation work. With a memorized deck, that without having to actually memorize the cards or estimate, right? And if you're interested in edge marking, you can also the OG edge mark is the Devil's deck from Tarbell. Where they in the Tarbell course you can actually learn how to edge mark a deck by yourself. Harlan, and I forget which exact lesson it is, but I believe if you just search Devil's Deck on Penguin, you'll find the lesson.
Our wonderful social media people will also drop a link below in the description so that you can go check out the Devil's Deck. It's really good.
Yeah, so for, I don't know what the download costs, $9 or something, you could actually learn how to mark your own edge mark deck.
They're really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And also we want to shout out David Blaine's decks because I think the white lines and the split spades are marked.
Yeah.
It's really clever.
Yeah, there's a lot of markings on the David Blaine cards as well. The white lines are one that you know, there was no way to know how it was marked, so you kind of had to figure it out on your own. I kind of like decks like that sometimes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on. We're in the top 3, and I am not surprised that any of these 3 made the top 3. And the first one we're going to be talking about is the Phoenix marked deck. This is from Card Shark over in Germany, and these are really nice. First of all, let's talk about the way they come. They come in like a blister pack, like not just sealed, but like in like a fun, like that's. I mean, they are cellophaned. That's cool. That's cool. Also, let's go ahead.
The one that we have here also has large indexes.
Oh, that's so. Here's the cool thing about
I love the large indexes.
Card Shark. Yeah, is they make some really nice alternatives to the United States Playing Card Company's stuff, where their back design is really. These were made because there came a time where you couldn't get rider back stuff made, and so this is like a very standard back design over in Europe now.
I even feel around here, people use these all the time.
Yeah, these are very, very nice. The Card Shark stuff is all really high quality. The marks on these are interesting because it's a reader system. It's and so you can read them from a spread. But what's really cool to me, I was just reading about this before we turned the cameras on, is they made the marking system and then they reverse engineered the marking system to take out the marks so that they look like, so the unmarked Phoenix cards are actually a back design based off the marked cards.
Right, yes.
If that makes sense to you, they made the marked deck first, and then they took the marks out so that you could, for when they produced the regular deck.
Yeah, it's a really easy. It's a really easy deck to read. Queen of Hearts, you know, Jack of Hearts.
They're marked in a bunch of places.
Now,
and the larger index is kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, I guess are they? Yeah.
You know what? I don't.
It says it on that, or maybe that's just an ad for the large index. Just bring out a regular 10 here. They might just be slightly larger.
I think they're only a little bit larger, and I think it's really just the number.
Yeah, that's bolder, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit bolder.
Yeah.
These are great.
Yeah, I mean, these are people that make.
They make playing cards for magicians.
They make these for magicians specifically, you know. And Phoenix is one of those brands where, like, if you get into it, you can keep it. You know, like they're printing these, they exist, and a lot of the other tricks that they print are also on this stock and all this back design. So
they've got like all kinds of different cool gaffs, and they're like the double decker, the Phoenix double decker is really nice, where it's basically it's 2 decks of cards that are only as thick as 1 deck of cards. So imagine holding 102 cards in your hand, but it's the same thickness as 1 deck of cards.
Yeah,
which is really nice.
I think this is just an ad. I think these are just the regular index, and there's probably like you can also get it in a large index as well.
I think you're right.
Because these are big, but they're a little bit bolder than the Garrett one. But anyway.
Well, I think this is also like Phoenix's face.
Yes. Yeah. You know, from decent. You know, I know that's the Queen of Clubs.
Yeah, I can see that.
I can see it. It's it's a little thin, but you can do it. And from the spread, it's great. This is definitely just for like a working magician.
Yeah, really, really phenomenal deck of cards, and I totally see why this placed number 3.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that use these. So
yeah. You know, it's funny. A lot of times we see people from Europe who have a harder time getting access to the United States Playing Card Company stuff, and they almost always come in with Phoenix cards.
Yes, for sure. Well, moving on
to number 2.
Number 2. Let me put these in here.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
This is it right here. The Penguin marked deck.
Marked cards. Marked cards.
First of all, did you see how easy that came off?
There's so many small details on the marked cards. Let's start with I mean, I haven't examined the card boxes on a lot of the other, ones that are designed to look like regular decks, but first thing, it's going to have a regular looking card box with a full back. There's not going to be a seal on these. Some people have opinions about that type of stuff. The pull tab comes right off.
It's a big deal for me.
Taking a great pain to go through with that. And then, of course, we have the Penguin Magic marked cards. These are marked
6 ways from Sunday. Literally 6 ways from Sunday.
So they're going to have an edge mark, right, where it literally is a reader, so I can see exactly that this is like the 5 of clubs, 4 of clubs, 3 of clubs.
They've also got a top mark.
Yep. So also a top mark where if something got pulled up, you could look in the dead center here and see exactly what that card is. So if you were to do a type of thing where somebody touched a card and you up jogged it like this, you could look just right in the dead center, and I know that's the Jack of Clubs.
Here's the other thing. These are marked for lefties as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of marking systems that are really only designed for right-handed folks, but if you spread these this way, you can read them both upside down and right side up because they're marked in all four corners in all of the correct directions.
Right. This is on a thin crush stock, the Penguin Magic Elite thin crush stock, traditionally cut, so you can do your tail. I think they're traditionally cut. They must be.
Yeah, they are traditionally cut.
Okay. So they shuffle from the bottom up. This is what I carry every day.
This is what I carry every day, and I just want to address something real quick. A lot of times when I talk to a magician who's never used marked cards before and you show them a reader, as soon as they read the marks, they're like, well, I can see them. My lay audience is always going to see them. And first of all, no, they won't. We use these all the time. Second of all, go back and watch my performance on Fool Us, because I use the Penguin mark cards in Fool Us. And there's millions of people who saw that and thousands of comments on the YouTube page. Not all of them kind, but I tell you what there was no comments on, the fact that there were marks on those cards.
Right.
It's incredible that people don't see them. Also, I think these come with identical jokers.
Identical jokers and a double backer and a blank face card.
All details important to us.
Yes. All the very fine details. And the most important thing about these, and we didn't, I apologize, didn't take the time to look at the prices of all the rest of these cards, but I don't think any of them are the same price as these. These are $10 a deck if you were to buy one. But if you were to buy a brick, which is 12 cards, 12 decks, and you should, these are only $5.
That's what makes them basically disposable to us.
Yeah.
So, I remember my first Boris Wild deck, and I was doing a lot of signed card effects, but never with the Boris Wild deck, because when it came out, it was like $30, $40.
Yeah.
Don't know what the price is off the top of my head, but a lot of the decks of cards that have come out, even now, some marked cards are still $10, $15 a deck, and that's a little bit much for me.
Now, yes, but this is why you should get into this. Like, if you're gonna I want to get into a marked deck, we're printing these forever.
Yeah.
As far as I know, they come in red, blue. They also come in jumbo index. All right, I use the jumbo index ones all the time now. That's like my favorite one. They also come in, we have a stripper version of this.
The stripper version is one that I use all the time, and it is factory cut stripper decks.
Yeah.
You can open it in front of someone and immediately go into stripper work.
There's also options where you can get this just the regular marked, but you can also get the mnemonica version, which it's just that it comes stacked in mnemonica for the most part. So like factory sealed, open it up, and it's in the mnemonica order.
The other thing about the mnemonica ones, though, is that there are jokers in it that have the mnemonica stack written on it, and there is a secret on the box. There's a secret
There's
indication.
like a poker hand crib here that looks like it tells you what the poker hands are. It doesn't. It tells you the order of mnemonica. So we just said everything exactly the same right there.
Yeah.
But look. This to me, this is the best marked deck.
Yeah.
But if your intention is to I want to have a marked deck that I use every day, I don't know if you can beat this one. So
look,
and I'm biased heavily, but
very, very heavily biased. But at the same time, I mean, it's different than if I'm going to get the code or I'm going to do the Marksman deck, I'm going to be doing those routines with those decks, and those marks are going to allow me to do those routines flawlessly without having to do any sort of mental gymnastics. As far as an everyday carry, this is what I'm going to go to. Whenever I make gaffs, or whenever I'm making sorted decks, like a pump deck or something like that, I'm going to be using these because I buy these. I buy a couple of bricks of these a year. And
which is why, if you're going to compare it against the ones of its type, like the Boris Wild and the Mandolin,
or the Phoenix decks,
and the Phoenix decks, it's
they all kind of work the same.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I can buy 12 of those for $60.
Yes.
And I could buy, when Boris Wild's deck first came out, you could buy 2 decks for that amount.
Right. It's to me, this is where I'm going to end up going. And just I love the jumbo index. Yeah. So I'm, probably, that's not even available on, well, I guess Phoenix has a larger index, but I would like to check out someday. But
it makes the marked deck accessible for you that you're going to go out without fear. It takes all the fear out of out of hurting your cards. I was given some online classes and I made gaffes in front of people, and I just cut up a deck of marked cards that I had on me, and I didn't think about it.
Yeah, I'm destroying these cards all the time.
It's crazy.
It also comes with a download with Rick Lax and John Armstrong.
And those downloads are great.
They're very good.
That was the download that revealed to me that John Armstrong, a very close friend of mine, had been using marked cards for years and not telling anyone.
He doesn't use marked cards.
No.
John Armstrong?
John Armstrong?
No, let's set the record. No, he's never used a marked deck. Yeah, he does all that for real. So
he's an actual wizard.
Yeah. So
Penguin marked deck. I mean, obviously we work for Penguins, so we're
marked
very
cards,
biased,
but like, I mean,
I was using these before I worked for Penguins.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. So
number one.
This is determined by you. The number one marked deck.
This is a very cool deck.
This is a very cool deck.
We are talking about the DMC Elites by Phil Smith. I believe that's just printed by the USPCC, designed by Philip Smith.
Yeah. These are made for DMC?
Yeah,
Drummond Money Coots?
Drummond Money Coots? Yeah, is that the last name?
Yeah.
I never remember. Cool guy. Cool special. Did you watch that special?
Yeah.
Death by Magic?
Yeah, Death by Magic on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Whew. Anyway.
Yeah.
Very high-class, sophisticated deck of cards. Tuck box, heavy green cardboard. These come in different colors.
Yeah.
I think these might have been the newest version that came out.
Like version 5 is purple. I think these might be version 3, or maybe the
Not
Elites
sure.
are green.
I know he's printed a lot of different ones.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about what the big deal with these are. I mean, first of all,
great stock.
Regular, it's not going to have regular faces. The Jokers, you got a little reveal Joker there. This is Drummond's silhouette. Very cool guy. A little history of the Elites there. But let's talk about, this is probably the only deck in the group that we can say this thing about, and that is that this is the deck that you can read very far away.
Yes.
I know that's the Queen of Diamonds.
Yeah.
Did I get it right? Okay, good. Because that would have been embarrassing.
So this is
it's
the
very big.
The optical marking system.
Optical marking system.
Yeah, created by Phil Smith.
The deck back design is very, very, very busy, but it literally says the card in giant, like 7D or 6C, so it's a reader, but it's like this big.
It's huge.
It's
you can read it from almost across the stage.
Right. So I'm assuming, I haven't done it, but this is the 10 of diamonds. And
it takes a while to get used to it. My eyes don't want to do it, but only because I use Penguin's maiden deck every day, so I'm constantly reading different kind of marks. But once you sit down and play with these, it's amazing how far away you can see it. It just pops right out at you.
Yeah, once you get used to it, you can't not see it. And it's not hard to see at all. No. Once you see it, you're just like, oh, wow, that's like huge. But you would never see it unless you knew where it was and what you were looking for.
You don't have to throw your eyes out of focus or squint or do anything funny. I mean, it just sticks out.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, it's really, really great.
They're really nice cards.
Give it a shuffle here. Yeah. So you got
I know a lot of
7 of diamonds, 10 of hearts, 6 of diamonds, Jack of hearts, 5 of diamonds. I mean,
I know a lot of people who DMC Elites is their go-to deck. This is what they do every day. This is what they always carry. And, it's a little pricier than the Penguin Maiden deck, but man, is this a classy deck. The tuck boxes are always really nice.
Well, it's the only one I can recommend when somebody asks me, like, hey, I have a hard time seeing, which is like, when you talk about marked decks, so that is like the thing that comes up all the time. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a lot of routines where I need to read a card from that far away. It's just how it is. But if you have struggle seeing, this is really the only deck, I think, that I could confidently say. I remember Magic Ballet had like a deck of like Brooklyns or something like that, which I don't think exists or you can even buy at this point. But that was a juice deck, which I know you didn't really talk about. Yeah,
the juice deck, you do sort of need to throw your eyes out of focus a little bit to see them. And originally juice decks there was a fluid that was actually applied to the deck of cards and then left to dry. And it's...
but those are something that you could see from a distance.
Yeah, but that comes from the gambling world where you are literally reading your opponent's cards across like a 6, maybe even 10 foot across tables in dim lighting. And the Brooklyns, you could definitely do that. Now, you also had to translate in your head because it didn't, like if you've ever seen the movie Shade, those play a plot point without spoiling it too much. But in the movie Shade, it's digitally done, whereas it's blotches and X's and lines. And so you're translating that code in your head.
I mean, I think out of all these decks, you know, you've probably got an idea of like the different genres that exist. Like this, sure, take this to a nice like close-up gig, and you could use it as your like everyday deck. But I think the real strength of it is for people that like want to do Mark Deck stuff that you know you just have a hard time reading them.
Yeah.
Because it's if you can't read that. I'm sorry, there's no Mark Deck for you.
Yeah,
right.
No,
like,
I think that's fair.
Without just like writing it in huge letters and numbers on the back.
Yeah, you know, the only other thing, and I should have talked about this earlier, is but it's coming up because of Juice Decks, is there are tactile marking systems out there using what's called punch work.
But like again, you're getting into like what are you using this for?
Yeah, it's a very different scenario.
Yeah.
So let's get to our picks, though.
Yeah.
Let's get to our picks.
Well. Yeah. You want me to go first?
I'll
go first. So the DMCs are definitely going to be one of my top three here, and also, you know, it has to be the Penguin Magic Deck, which actually was hard to find because it just looked like a regular deck of cards. Yeah. Okay, because we got a big pile of cards back here, and you know, like, I guess the Boris Wild deck to me is something that it just offers. It just offers something from, well, you know what I'm going to do. I have a regular deck here, right? This is the one that I'm going to say is number one for me because it just has to be. Number two, I would use the DMC Elites because, like, if I was doing a nice, this would like go with some of my suits and things, you know. So that's a nice option. But then, you know, if you want to do something fun, I am a big fan, and they weren't on the list. I am a big fan of the Deland Deck just because of the history, and it is a different style of like marking system. I actually like the back design for a custom deck, and Deland is also a big baseball fan, so there's like some weird like baseball themed stuff in here. I like the Deland Days or the Nifty deck, either one, doesn't matter to me, but those would be my picks.
I agree with you on two, I disagree with you on one. So obviously the Penguin Maidens are my go-to everyday carry for all the reasons that we talked about earlier. I mean, I have another one of these literally in my pocket. I got the DMCs in here for Reading Far Away just because I can. Currently, when I'm on stage performing, I use blue Penguin Maiden deck because I can see the blue from a little bit further away, like I said. But I could see an argument for switching to DMCs using them on stage, especially for some of the work that I do. Number two, though, I'm going to go with The Code by Andy Nyman.
Yeah, it's a good pick.
And the reason why is because there is some stuff that you can do with this, with those additional markings that I really, really like. But also, the markings are so well hidden for a system where I would feel very confident like shuffling this deck afterwards and then doing a lot of my regular work with this and not being worried about somebody else using them.
And this is the one out of any of the decks that people ask me about, because I get this question a lot.
Yeah.
If you're trying to like learn, you want to do memorize deck stuff, this is the best one to get.
Yeah.
Marksman's cool. It's just overkill, in my opinion. This one is simple, to the point, and would get you comfortable with the ideas of what's possible with a memorized deck.
I like a lot of the thinking with the Marksman.
It's great.
I would get distracted by how much information is on there if I had to use it for regular tricks later.
Like you said,
and the code's not going to do that.
And the mark is more hidden too. Like that, the Marksman deck is covered with stuff.
Yeah. Now I do want to rewatch the Marksman stuff because some of the thinking from Luke is incredible. But these are my picks.
All the cards are amazing.
They're all. I mean, there's not a dud among this group. Y'all did a really great job voting on this.
Whew.
And the only thing I would disagree with is the Penguin Mark deck being below the DMCs. I feel like a lot of those are pretty well placed. I feel like the list is in like a really good order too.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, DMCs are popular.
Yeah.
And it's hard to argue with them. They're well made.
Yeah.
Phil Smith is like. You know, special thanks to Mr. Smith out there.
Yeah, this really is like the Phil Smith.
Yes. Phil is
the top 10 Phil Smith Mark decks.
Yes,
video.
he will go down with Deland in history as like one of the Mark deck designers.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for watching. Please let us know in the comments below if there's any Mark decks that we missed on this. Although I don't think there are because we were pretty comprehensive.
Yeah.
Tell us what your picks are on this and what Mark cards you use and why. Also, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you'll be informed and notified anytime we put up more videos like this. Also, be sure to check out some of our other videos like the Magic Matchup, the Penguin Live Lookbacks, and subscribe to the Penguin Magic Podcast. On behalf of Nick Locapo, myself, Eric Tate, thank you so much for watching, and as always, we'll see you next time.